It's your boy Marcus Trill with a real Trill render demo for you today. I'm going to show you how to do a quick grayscale rendering. So I'm going to start off by showing you, just quick sketching or rendering technique. And then you want to have a light source. You want to have your highlights, your midtones. You want to have your shadows. You want to have your reflections from the ground or whatnot. You also want to have your cast shadow. So when you're doing a grayscale render, you're going to take the same ideas from a color rendering. You're going to have your sky tone. You're going to have your ground reflector. You're going to have your light sources. So we can take this and duplicate it, turn the saturation off or the color. And now you can see you have the gray version and then you have the color version. With this gray version, I'm going to bump it up a little bit. Just make it a little more poppy. And you can see here you have your, I would say the light source is kind of coming from this way. You have your highlights, you have your midtones, you have your reflection still being on there. It's just gray, so you can't really see that. You have your cast shadow. So we're going to take this and we're going to apply it to this sketch. So the way that I start off doing it is I try to black in, all the dark stuff. So you want to take the sketch and put it on multiply, which I did already. And if you want to set up your hotkeys, I have flip canvas as Command F because I always like to flip the canvas to go back and forth to make sure I'm doing everything okay, making sure everything looks right from all angles. Get the paint bucket, do black. So this is for the tires. Then Command J is to duplicate. So just duplicate that circle so you don't have to make it again. I'll put in the same spot. And then make another layer. And R is for rotate. So we're gonna get the lasso tool. Just kind of lasso this ground part out, or the cast shadow, should I say. And I don't know how, but I always like to click. I always click a lot of buttons, so you might see some random keys pop up that don't really go for anything because I clicked the wrong button. I usually like to work in the dark, so see somehow I like the layer. I don't know how, but that always happens. So make another layer, and I'm going to go ahead and cut out these lights. And there's different ways of doing it. Some people like to use paths. I'm not really a biggest fan of the paths doing it. Some people also just do it freehand. Some people lasso it out. So it's whatever, works the best for you. And this is just the way that I do it. And then after I have, cut all this out, I'll go back in and I'll erase it. Just to soften up some of the edges so it's not too sharp. Flip canvas. And I think for this I'm going to do a brush. Just because I want it to be controlled a little more by me. Boom. So now we can come in. I'm going to lower the sketch a little bit. Come in and fix some of these other things in here. Cool. So now, oh, you know what? There's also this little part in here. This has a little shadow in it. Okay, cool. So now the next thing I'm going to do is my wheels. So this is a quick way to cheat some wheels. So what I'll do is I'll make a circle, drop that in there. Put this in the circle. Then I'll lasso. Oh, wrong one. Lasso tool, you can find that over here. Kind of lasso this out. Then we'll come back to this. Duplicate it. Make it a tiny bit smaller. Magic wand. I know there's an easier way to do this, but somehow I got to this. And then somehow I always lose my layers too, so I would say try to keep track of that. All right, cool. So I'm going to take this, merge it into that little circle thing that I made. And I'm also going to do a little bit of drawing to it, just to customize it up a little bit so it's not directly too much. Cool, this is good enough. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate it and then just rotate it. And then you can kind of come back to that layer again and kind of see how this is coming. Cool. So yeah, I'm doing it again. I'm just clicking random keys. I don't know what's going on here. And sometimes I click on T by accident, and then that's the most annoying thing because it's going to bring up the font. And any button or hotkey you try to click, it's going to think you're trying to type something. So that's not fun. But then, yeah, I just keep duplicating this. Then I want to click U. What is this tool called? It's the shape tool. Well, this is probably what I could have used to do it. Then I'm going to come up in here, and we're going to take the fill and put nothing in there. I'm going to make the stroke that color. But it went away. Yeah, so this is my first time doing one of these demo things, so it's going to be kind of all over the place. So just hang in there with me because I'm sure you might learn a thing or two, hopefully. And if not, then I'm sorry. I kind of see here, I merged it. That's okay. Because what we're going to do next is take this, merge this shape into it, and then I duplicate it and turn the other one off just in case I need to come back and use this wheel again. Oh, you know what? And I also have to merge it into this back part. Okay, cool. So we made a wheel. I'm going to duplicate it again, hide it. So I'm going to scale it down a little bit to fit the sketch. Kind of put it in perspective a little bit so it doesn't look like it's 2D or whatever. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come up into here, into filter gallery or into filter. Then we're going to pick liquefy. And what this is going to do is going to let us dish the wheel in. See, I'm clicking random keys again. All right. And okay, so the right bracket is to make the brush bigger, and the left bracket is to make it smaller. Just gonna dish it in. Boom. Custom wheel. Now, what we're gonna do again, I'm gonna do the levels and make this inside gray part a little darker. Now we're gonna go to filter gallery again, up in filter gallery this time. And I like to use cutout. And what this does is make the wheel look a little bit more like a sketch. And you can just play with this and see if you find something that you like. I think that's kind of cool. This is also pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to come back to levels again because it's gray now. Just to make it a little darker. Boom. Now I'm going to duplicate it again. And that wheel's a little bit too high up. Let's go ahead and scale it down a little bit. But actually, I'm going to come back. See, I'm all over the place. Usually when I do it, I just do it. So I'm going to duplicate it again. Go here and make this completely black. Put it underneath and scale it up some. Or how do I want to do this? Let's do it this way. So what I'm doing now is just coming back here to trim away this excess black rim that's around the wheel that I created. Because I'm going to make the tire now. So with that piece that I made black, I'm going to scale it up a little bit. Now I don't know what this is called, but you click this and this lets you draw on whatever you have sketched inside the layer. So it's a pretty cool feature. So I'm just going to do white. And there we go. Now we got it. It's a quick tire. One other thing I also like to do is when I'm doing a grayscale render, I like to kind of make the background gray a little bit, and that kind of becomes the mid-tone for the sketch. So this is kind of cool. This is a nice one. And then what you can do is take this background color, put that in the tire, and then kind of make it look like it's the tire's dripping into the background. All right, now I'm going to duplicate this down. Duplicate it. Then I'm going to put it here for the back wheel. If you really want to, you could keep those two layers separate just to get a little bit more tire in the back if, you know, really trying to capture that level of detail. All right, cool. Now I got my rims. So now what I like to do is I'll get a white brush. And really the only brushes that I use is this hard brush and a soft brush. And then I also have a smaller brush to do sketching. So I'll get the soft brush. And I'm just going to try to capture that focal point. So really my focal point is the front and a little bit of this body side because I got some kind of this vent, some complicated surface going on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a black brush, make it black, and I'm going to start rendering it. So you can do it two ways. You can just kind of just do whatever, which is kind of what I usually do. For this, I'll kind of start with the sky tone, which would be this blue, but in a grayscale render, it's just gray. So we don't want it to be too dark. It's kind of the sky. And also, you want to make sure you don't focus too much on, you know, everything. Just try to stick to that focal point that you're doing. Because sometimes when you have homework, you gotta do like 20 of these sketches. You can't put the same amount of detail into every single one, so you gotta learn how to manage your time and only focus on your, you know, focal points or what you're trying to show with the render. So I got that. Then I'm gonna make a new layer and come down here and do some of this. I guess you could call this, you know, the core. Okay. So this in here is going to be a little darker. Soft brush. Kind of got this splitter here. And then, I want this to be kind of my, what do you call it? Highlight where my light source is kind of hidden at. So in here, it's gonna be hit to this part. I'm gonna make the surface do that. Sometimes I find myself making it too dark. So, you just want to always come back and try to make sure you don't make it too dark and, wash away all your stuff that you're trying to show, because then nobody's going to be able to see it. All right. Now you can kind of see here on the fender, you have this sky tone here, making it a little darker. So I'm going to come over here, make this a little bit darker, airbrush. And since my light is kind of hidden directly right here, you're going to have a cast shadow of this fender on the hood. But actually, I'm going to go through and do this really quick. All right. I'm going to go back to that lasso tool. And this is that fender, or cast shadow of the fender on the hood. I lowered opacity a little bit. Don't want it to be too dark. Same thing over here. Since my light is hitting this, I'm gonna make it a little darker over here. But then again, we're gonna have a little sky tone coming onto it. I'm gonna come here and kind of do my horizon line a little bit. Lower that opacity some. Come here and do it on this part too. Or down one more. We can bring it all the way across. Oh, just like that. I'm always clicking the wrong keys. Cool. Maybe I'll come up and do a little one here. Okay. Flip the canvas, make sure everything looks right. Cool. And actually looking at these rims, I don't want them to draw too much attention. So I'm gonna go ahead and darken them up a little bit. And then I've merged it together, so it's gonna be, I'm not gonna be able to get that rim to do that same thing, but that's okay. Okay. So I kind of feel I made it a little too dark. I think it's okay, but we're gonna come through and put all the highlights or whatever you want to call it. Because again, I said this is where my focal point is going to be, so it's going to come through and lighten some of that up because I felt it was too dark. Okay, I'm pretty happy with where it is now. So and also when I do my renders, I kind of like bounce all over the place. So I'm going to do my glass now. So what I do is I'll take this layer with this on it, I'm going to duplicate it, and then I inverse it. And since I had all this drawn on the same thing, I'm just going to go ahead and erase out this other stuff, these seats and this grill and stuff. Okay, now I have my DLO, or I guess you call it windshield. Then I'm going to just erase, duplicate it again, duplicate it again, and then I just keep duplicating it. It's a pretty fast method for me, or efficient. Then I'm gonna make it look a little offset. Why isn't it doing it? There we go. I've been using the PC all summer, so I'm still trying to get back acquainted with my MacBook with all these keys. Cool. I'm gonna do it again, and I'm gonna wait for that actually. All right. I'm gonna come in and do my hard white highlights. For this one, you can use whatever kind of brush. I noticed that the slanted brush sometimes can be a little better and give you a kind of cool effect with the thick to thin. Then you also, I like to lower the opacity just to kind of give it layers because then I'm going to come back and do it again just to kind of emphasize whatever it is I'm trying to emphasize. You also want to be loose with this kind of render. You don't want to get too serious. That's what your final renders are for. To be super uptight. I turned on the light because I'm not on camera, so I don't have to really do it in the dark, I guess. So I can see these keys because I keep hitting the wrong buttons. And it got dark outside super fast. Super fast. It's like a Ferrari. I'm gonna bring this down actually to here. And then also, when you don't want to be too detailed with this kind of stuff, but I tell you, the little details that you do go a long way, and people notice it. Just the very, very tiny little details. Just like doing this will take your sketch to the next level, and lets people know that it's not just like paper thin. You can do that little stuff, little offsets and everything all around the whole entire sketch. But then again, like I said, that's if you have time. Some nights you have to, or weeks you have to do 40 of these a week just for VisCom, and then you have studio and you have other classes. You can't, you really can't spend that much time. So you want to be quick as possible. This grill kind of looks like a fish. This front design, kind of fishy. La Farish, La Farish. No, that doesn't sound nice. Fishari. No, that doesn't sound nice either. This is kind of the cast shadow of this fender slash headlight onto this surface. I'm gonna come back to these highlights, kind of turn down a little bit. It's too dark still. That was too hard. So one thing that I did, I wanted to have this kind of wing coming through the headlight. So I want to like get this color here, dump it in there. Oh, boom. Now we can maybe, no, you're not gonna really see it that much on this side. I'll still do it. And then what I did was I locked this layer so I can only color inside of it. Again, these little details. They go a long way. I'm just hoping that this video saves because the last two times I did it, it crashed and it really put me down, so I didn't do it again. So it's kind of like a week later now, and I'm trying to do it again. So hopefully, this works. And right now what I'm doing is kind of putting this reflection, off this reflection, kind of coming off this, because you got to remember that this is a glossy car. It's going to be reflections everywhere. And there's reflections in metallic paint, of course. All right, let's see. What else can I do here? Ground reflection. So we're going to take this gray airbrush, and then I'm just going to airbrush it onto this because this surface is facing the ground. A little bit here, a little bit there. Then I'm going to go in with black, lower the opacity. Okay. And again, this is just kind of sloppy. Just doing it really quick. Just make sure it looks good enough to convey your idea. So now at this point, really what I do is I just start to merge it all down because it starts to get cluttered, and I don't like when that happens. Ooh. Yeah, what I should have done when I started was group. What I like to do is I like to make a group, and then I put all my render stuff in that group. Okay. Now, one thing I learned, you want to make the sketch kind of fade, to try to get that focal point. And I just did a hand gesture, and you couldn't see it. So, yeah. Or you know what I'll do? Did I duplicate it? Yeah, I duplicated it. Try to get that same gray that's in the background. And then I'll just come in with the eraser and too low, bring this up. Sometimes I like to come back in and re-sketch it a little bit. Since this is a hand sketch, come in with the Photoshop, make it look a little bit more like I actually sketched it in Photoshop. Put my center line. For some reason, this inside black part looks gray, but I don't care. It's okay. You're just doing little detail stuff now. I'm going to come back in again and put in these highlights. So one thing you can do for the wheel lip is again duplicate this. Just make it white. You can make a whole new one because this kind of has that jagged edge around it. You make it a little smaller. Again, come over here to just draw it within the layer. Or actually, I'm just going to erase it. Just slightly erase it. Same thing over here. And I'm going to hand erase this one. Let's go back to that sketch layer. I'm going to do white. Do this, like I said, little detail stuff. I'm gonna do a little bit of the wheel sketch over here. A little section. And then I guess you could say one little final touch is you can get the make a new layer and then use airbrush. And then over here you can put it on overlay, and you're just gonna make whatever you have white pop. And that's just kind of to make that focal point really pop. It might be too bright. You don't want to overdo it. So I'm going to go back and erase this some. Do something a little bit with the wheels. And make sure you don't overdo it. Okay, let's try that again. Kind of move this up. Then I'm going to select this. Come up here in the copy merge. Command V. Command T. Flip this. And this is something I like to do. Just kind of makes the sketch have a little more to it. Then you come up here to filter gallery, blur motion, and then I like to put it at an angle, kind of make it look like it's kind of moving, and it's also kind of like pointing into that focal point area. Oh no, I had it selected. All right, do this again. Turn it back up. Then we can just go ahead and erase this. And you can just kind of do it however you want. Lower it a little bit. And yeah, it's a quick render sketch. Then after, I think like after this point, excuse me, anything you do is just extra for this kind of, quick render, especially again, like when you have a lot of homework to do. You want to get as many as you can get done and then come back to it and add the little details, because you don't want to spend 5 hours on one sketch and have to do 20 more when you can do, 20 sketches and then come back and make 5 of them or 6 of them look super, super nice. Then it's gonna be more rewarding, and I think it's gonna be looked at a little more like, wow, this guy, he did 5 super detailed renders, and he also has like 15 other renders as to somebody having, 4 super detailed renders and not having all their work done. Yeah, the next video I'll try to make a little bit more. I'll try to make a little better. This one's kind of all over the place. And again, this is it's not the first time I've done this, but it's the first time I've hopefully got it to work. So trial and error, and I'm learning. Oh no, it's frozen. Damn it. Come on, go back. Okay. All right, and there we go. We have a quick grayscale render. If you guys like what you saw, go ahead, like it, subscribe, share, whatever. Go in the comments, tell me what you think, what I can do to get better if you have any tips for me. All right, thank you.